Rahubat, family. This video that we want to focus on is 3 goals of a Nuwaupian taught by Dr. Malachi Z York. And I think it's very important to try to address some of the goals and the principles that we teach as Nuwaupians, because of the simple fact that we have such a vast doctrine. We put out so much information, and I think it gets kind of convoluted for a lot of students. And it's also what leads students to kind of fall off, because they never got the message. Something the master teacher was saying. They never got the message. I think he said that on the Malachi CD.
Yeah.
You know? And
it just seems like the doctrine is so vast. There's a lot to look at to get the whole picture.
It's the way the master teach. But because one of the things he was talking about is he wants to make the student a part of the learning process, right? And so he kind of puts things out there almost in a vague way at times, a direct way, then a vague way, and a direct way, and he kind of, he does a lot of flip-flopping, and that's why he gets accused of these things, because of how his teaching style. Yeah, his teaching style is it's complex. It's complex. It's what creates, I think it's what creates, for a large part, a lot of the slanderers, because they're having a hard time comprehending what this guy's purpose is and what his message is. They thought they did, and then it's like, oh, okay, I thought he was about this, but he's not.
And our lodges base our teachings on the man. It's called Sukenwe Toa, right? He was the man, a Toa or a Ta'ite, that had the secret that these Israelites, these 3 Israelites, the first 3 sons of Jacob, Reuben, Simon, and Levi, wanted. Levi got most of the secrets, the Levites, and set up a priesthood called the Brotherhood of Leviathan. And they became the law over the scriptures. They knew all the Egyptian laws, but they didn't get the passwords, and they didn't get the master's key, which was hidden in the 9th chamber by Namuz, who got it when he came in. So they were in bondage, and that's your whole Israelite story. So when you deal with the Bible and trying to compare it to the Egyptian and the Sumerian, it flows very easy. Black Book Part 2 makes it very clear. It ties everything right up like I'm doing now and shows you the places to match it up. The way I teach is I spatter out information and want you to sit down and bring it together. I want you to be a part of the learning process and stop just dictating you like you're not a God. You are a God, so you're responsible. When I put that info out there, you're responsible to take the pieces and put the puzzle together and then say, aha, I see that. Sometimes I'll say something and say, I don't understand that. And you have to wait 6 months later, I'll walk around and start talking about that. There you go, that's the missing piece of that puzzle. That's my methodology. You know what I'm saying? That makes you a part of the learning process, and therefore it makes it something that you know, not something that you were taught. Like education, all right?
Real quick before you even go into the goals, just real quick about that. What makes someone think that way instead of thinking like, when you're in school or if someone's in college or something, if they have a hard test or exam or a hard class they're going through, sometimes you think, well, let me just buckle down and really get this. Well, we don't approach it from that point of view.
That's a good question. I don't know. The master talks about how he has 2 types of students, right? Okay. So if you listen to the Mod CD, that he put out, we did that particular class back in 1998, and I was in that class. I was the one brother that asked the only one that asked 2 questions in that particular class. It was a class. It was at night. We was on the land. It was at night. It kind of had rain that night, so the ground was kind of wet somewhat. And the master came out looking like Melchizedek, and it was only a handful of us. Okay. It was only a handful of us. It was about maybe I don't know, 15 of us, if it was that many. about 15 of us in that particular class. But I want to say he stressed this point, and he said, I have two types of students. We have two types of students. One who works by body and one who works by spirit. I have a student that works by body, and then we have the student that works by spirit. The student that works by body, when we make changes in the doctrine, it's very hard for them to shift. The student that works by spirit never worries about the changes in the doctrine because of the fact that by nature that individuals are cosmosan and they are focusing on developing themselves spiritually, so the school of thought becomes irrelevant. He says the same thing in the other lecture is how to prove the existence of the Most High. And he says the same thing in a different way. I have two types of students. One student rather worship God. The other student is striving to become God.
And we're saying that has a direct impact on how you're comprehending the doctrine.
Of course, because the student that rather worships God is looking at the leadership. The student that rather worship God is looking at the leadership. So if the leader does something wacky and crazy like what's going on right now with the master, they're like, oh man, I thought he was this and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, you mean looking at them like judging them and like critiquing them and worrying about what they're doing.
Because they're following behind this individual and they have a certain perception of the individual.
Okay.
You with me? And so when that image that they had of the individual gets crushed, i.e. Chuck Morgan, i.e. Tarnoon, when that image gets crushed, like those guys, he stole his image, like he stole it. They flip. This has been a con all this time. I've been con. And so what that shows is that those types of individuals and those types of students got caught up in the individual and not the message, the essence of the message. And what is the essence of the message?
What is the essence of it? That's what the goals are about, right?
Yeah, what is the essence of the message? Because listen, first of all, let's do it like this. The master had one primary objective he was trying to achieve.
What's that?
One primary objective. We'll probably try to do maybe a detailed video to kind of show it by the books and stuff like that. So if you look at our doctrine going back to 1967, right, all the way till today, with the actual facts that we're putting out, we have one primary objective that the master is trying to achieve. He has one primary goal, right? What is that goal? It's the opposite of the goal of the devil. And what is the goal of the devil? The goal of the devil, quite simple. Anyone who knows anything about the nature of the devil is to steal your soul. So the goal of Paa Nabab Yaa NanaN is to restore your soul. That's all our doctrine is about. It's about restoring your soul. Becoming what we call a cosmosan once again. Becoming what we say an interdimensional being once again. But when you listen or talk to most students, they're materialists. They are hardcore materialists, in fact. In fact, they have no interest in developing themselves spiritually. And so they're rooted in the doctrine physically. That type of student is not trying to become God. Because God is an interdimensional being. At least the God of the Bible. One minute he's there, one minute he's on earth, next minute he's in heaven. The heaven is where? The heavens, star constellation. He's on another planet. So how does he go from one planet, right, on to earth? How does he do that? So because they said the God of the Bible came to Abraham in Genesis chapter 18. How in the world did he do that? He came down in the Tower of Babel, Genesis chapter 11. How he do that? Because according to Jesus, God is in heaven. So one minute he's in heaven, like in the book of Job, right? The devil comes with his angels, God, and they're in heaven, right? The heavens. It talks about the heavens, Samawati in Hebrew or whatever, or Arabic. And it means up there, star constellations, different other places, other abodes, right? But they come to heaven. They come to earth. Yeah. So that's why we always say that these are that's nothing but an extraterrestrial in today's society.
Yeah, they even talk about Enoch walking and talking with God, and
exactly.
translating,
right.
traveling.
So now these are interdimensional beings that can that one minute you see them, next minute you don't. It talks about John, and if you read the book of Revelations, John basically able to time travel with one of these beings who take them out of body, that whole out of body thing. So again, that's what the doctrine is all about, how to be able to go in and out of the body at will, to raise yourself up. That's the restoration of your soul. This is the restoration of your soul. This is what our doctrine has been teaching from day one. But the vast majority of students are materialists. They can't deal with that aspect. They don't even want to hear anything about spiritual. They don't want to make no prayers. They don't want to do chants. They don't want to dicker.
I was gonna say, now that you brought that up real quickly, I've heard a lot of people talk about the prayer part, especially after the religious schools kind of went away with. Everybody kind of started, well, I've heard everyone started like downplaying prayer and all that. What's your thoughts on prayer right quick?
Here's the problem. And the master answers it, right? It says, what is prayer? It says prayer is when you're communicating with interdimensional beings. Meditation is when you're listening to their response. I'll repeat it. Prayer is when you're communicating with interdimensional beings. Meditation is when you're listening to their response. And so this was the whole point of prayer. Basically, to retune yourself, to tune yourself through ritual, which prayer was. That's all it was.
Not worshiping, just communication.
That's what we was teaching when we was in the school of Islam as Ansar Allah. The master made that clear. He said, your prayer, the reason why you do salat, and you do it like 5 times a freaking day, and then he told them we're supposed to be doing like 7 times a day, because he's like, you're supposed to get up in the middle. I was like, what? In the middle of the night and do prayer? I was like, first of all, I have a hard enough time doing prayer 5 times a day, let alone 7. So I was like, but 5 was obligated, and the other 2 salats those were optional, right? And so, do salat through Fajr, you gotta wake up in the morning before, I had to do that. Right. You had to wake up in the morning before the sun rose, basically, and do salat through Fajr and all. And so, back in the day when we was an Ansar, I would pedal. I'll pedal, we used to set my table up. We were in the train station, basically. Yeah, I had to make salat in the train station. You had to make salat in the train station. And so, because you had to make your prayers, and basically, but the whole point of it, there was ritual. That was ritual to tune you into the other realms, the other dimensions. That's what we taught as Ansar Allah. That's something we did that no other Muslim taught. And that's a whole nother, we'll get into that. That's why the Muslims used to go, we weren't Muslims. They said, y'all ain't no Muslims. Y'all ain't no Muslims and stuff. Y'all talking about interdimensional travel. That's what we were talking about. Islam, nobody in Islam talks about that. And so, getting back to the goals of a Nuwaupian are quite...
say the 3 goals.
Yeah, are quite clear.
Or just 3 goals.
Well, yeah. Basically, here's the thing. A Nuwaupian is to balance the physical part of their nature with the spiritual part of their nature. That's one of the primary objectives of a Nuwaupian, is to balance the physical you with the spiritual you. That's the goal. To make the physical part of you harmonize with the spiritual part of you. Now, how do you do that? And that's a whole nother. That's a lesson all into itself, a class all into itself. But I just want to bring that up. The other objective of Nuwaupian is to conquer the spell of Leviathan. That's the other objective. And what is that?
What is Leviathan?
Yeah.
What is the spell of Leviathan?
Everything and anything that deals with the European culture.
That's a lot.
Everything and anything that deals with the European culture. So if you're doing anything that has to do with the European culture, then you are participating in the spell. And we all are. I'm like, ain't no joke. All of us, we're caught up in it. We're dipped in it. We're dipped in this nasty culture. And so this is why we taught, which is the 3rd goal, right? The third objective of the Nuwaupian is to live of, for, and by each other. To live of, for, and by each other. That was the third goal of a Nuwaupian. And so this is why Paa Nabab Yaa NanaN set up community living from the very beginning. Because he understood from day one, it's very difficult to raise yourself up, to blend, to mesh the physical and the spiritual so that you can inherit your 720, right? That was the goal. You had 360 degrees of knowledge of the physical realm, which we call Nasut in the school of Islam, right? But you have the potential of having 360 degrees of knowledge of the spiritual realms, which was Malakut and Lahut, right?
You know, these stories that you have interpreted in the scriptures strictly as religious dogma because of the translations by the Christian churches, etc., who had no knowledge of extraterrestrial, they have turned the spiritual community of beings who have existed in other galaxies into gods or into angels and gave them a bunch of names that didn't apply to them. And so you just happen to mention one who was very powerful, NanaN, his name is. They say Yanan, it's pronounced NanaN, depending on the dialect of what galaxy you're in, the pronunciation changes. And the one you described was another one called Rama, who's asking you about NanaN because NanaN is assigned to give you all answers about the things that you need to know in this time and the time that you've come from, to be able to distinguish the 144,000 who would be those extraterrestrial beings, prepare them to create that whirlwind and make that ascension out of this state, which they call the rapture, rising up from the earth while it goes through its turmoil with the Lamb, as they refer to him, which is merely a symbol of a humble being from an extraterrestrial. That's why the Quran says, we sent you down to earth. See, they keep missing it. It says, when there's a turmoil in the garden in heaven, then we cast you down to earth in the Quran. From where? The angels come down from where? From floating around in the sky. No, they sent you down to Absoulte, which is earth, the blue planet. They sent you here from other galaxies. When you violated the law, intergalactical law, you was cast down here like prisoners. You all are wayward, as you would call it. I don't know a better word for it. That you all are assigned to a prison. Earth is a prison that you all are in. And you are people who rebel, who would listen to Satan, as you call him, which was Azazillah then, or Tanush. You listen to him. You follow? And you've been assigned to earth until you overcome that. Until you turn and give your total reverence to Huwa, Allah, Allazi, La ilaha illa Huwa. But you incorporate in that, even that when you say Huwa, you have to say God, Allah, God, God, Allah. You keep interjecting. You personified him and said he was Master Farad Muhammad, or he was Yahweh ben Yahweh. You always have to do something rather than to just serve the omnipotent source of the Hawa, or way is inside you, the essence of life. So now you've been assigned to this prison, which is called Ardut, the blue rock, earth, until you, which they say, are born again. And born again of what do they say? Of the body or the spirit? Of the spirit. Y'all must be born again of the spirit. You must be transformed from being this mortal being who is destined to die back to immortality. You follow? You must become a supreme being again in order to be worthy of intergalactical traveling again. So now what has happened, the devil's seed is in the earth, mixing in with the God seed, as you'd have it, and it's keeping y'all bound to the planet and creating new dogmas every day, new deviations from the fundamental truth, and calling it religions and sects and all different different types of denominations, Sunni, Shia, Ahmadiyya, Bilalian, black Muslims, Hindu, Buddhists, and just creating new dogmas to keep you from seeing the straight, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, as they call it, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight way of those who made the pathway through the galaxies. The Sirat, when they say in the Quran, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. They're telling you, I want to be guided, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. I want to be guided to that way. I want to get back out of here. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. You know what I mean? That sirat of those who you are giving your grace, Allah Ta'ala. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. I don't want to be like those people who got the everlasting curse, who's damned to this earth forever. ولا الضالين. Or those who deviated off that path that was leading from Malakut to Nasut and went somewhere else. Or as they translated in modern times, have left the path of Deen al-Islam and went into other denominations of thought. And you deviate from the path of Deen al-Islam when you deviate from the path of Millah Ibrahim, when you deviate from the religion that Allah Ta'ala gave to the Prophet Adam, which was the way you should work your way back to Jannah to Idris, back out of this plane and back into Malakut, the domain of angelic beings from which most of you have come. But some people here have made an everlasting pact with Azazillah or Tanush, this being who tried to overthrow Mikael in Malakut prior to the birth of your planet. As a result of that, was cast down. Some mortals have succumbed to him and begin to worship him in a subtle kind of way. One of his names is God. And they have taken it and called Allah God and Jehovah God in Akhirah, etc., etc., etc. You follow? So you just happen to touch on a very sensitive subject. And I am here to try to bring you all back to that teaching. But I got to start with what you understand. I got to start giving you what you think you want, so you'll learn how to think on the level of what I have to give, or what you know you need. But I can't start by pouring out. I've been teaching for 20 years on earth, in and out, visiting in and out of here. Different beings speak to you at different times through me, trying to answer all of your questions to prepare you for the real knowledge, the real information that you have to have after you get through wobbling in how great you are and how you got here and how you're Abraham and you're Keter and you're this. When you finish all that ego tripping, then I can get down to teaching you the truth about things and prepare those who are supposed to leave here, to prepare so when the ship does come, they can go. You follow? And I know that sounds crazy, but he wants to make me sound crazy. That's why he made movies like Star Trek, because he knew this knowledge. The devil, Iblis, he knows these things. And that's why he saturates the television with a bunch of things like fiction, so that when the final truth comes, I say, your whole concept of religion in the Bible is wrong. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're talking about intergalactical beings. You're not talking about angels. You're talking about the ultimate source of all existence. You're not talking about God and Jehovah. Those are just expressions. When you say Allah, you're saying El-Huwa, Yahoo, oh, he who is. And you cannot define him while still confined to this prison called the physical body.
But you had to develop yourself spiritually to raise into those high vibratory frequencies, because those other realms, the beings that exist on those realms, they're vibrating at a higher rate. So you have to do things physically that allows the spiritual part of you, the energy part of you, to be able to tap into those other dimensions. The problem with living European culture is that we do things materialistically that binds our spirit. So for instance, the diet we eat, that's the ultimate thing. Like when you eat flesh, the problem is it creates density to the body, weight to the body. The more dense the body is, the harder it is for the spiritual part of you, the energy part of of your essence, to be able to separate. communicate with the other dimensions, where beings are existing on the higher abodes. It's very difficult. And so this is meshing the two together. And so when you go back to the school of Islam, when we were Ansar Allah, the master was trying to explain, listen, you guys have to develop the spiritual part of yourself, right? This is what raising 144,000 was all about. He said, the way you raise 144,000 is they cannot partake of the delicacies of the holic.
What does that mean?
That's Leviathan. They can't be into eating Doritos. They can't be into eating cookies and watching Casper the Friendly Ghost and X-Men on TV and all the things that bind them to this dimension. Get them desiring stuff. It's the desires that binds you. It binds your essence so that you wouldn't want to think of existing on other dimensions.
So you're saying this whole culture is about making us more physical. That's
all it is. It's keeping us bound to the planet Earth. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, everything we do creates an emotional response that keeps you bound to the planet Earth. So when you're watching, like what's going on now with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay, yeah, they just had to trade.
They traded like 4 of their players, right? They got rid of, they got rid of?
It was like 6 of them.
They got rid of,
Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas.
Dwayne Wade, Channing Frye, Hurd, some other people.
Now think about how many people are emotionally affected by that event.
Yeah, in many different ways. Some people happy, some people sad, some people. It's a lot of energy and attention to it.
That has nothing to do with them individually.
Yeah, they're not gonna earn a living from it. You're not gonna do nothing.
By it emotionally, and so it binds you. It binds you. Like certain people who are fanatics on let's say when you go to those with the Comic-Con type things.
Okay, they dress up.
They dress like the Klingons from Star Trek, or they dress like Yoda from Star Wars, and their whole house is painted with Star Wars stuff on it. This is where the word fanatic comes from. And what happens is when you're that bound to something materialistic like that, it bounds you, it drops you, it keeps your vibratory energy low. That's like going to an all you can eat place, right?
Yeah. And
seeing someone there who's like 300 pounds. I'm like, what are you doing in an all you can eat place? It should be against the law to have someone who's 300 pounds in an all you can eat place for their own benefit. I'm like, really? You're like 900 pounds and you're in an all you can eat restaurant? And so you're bound. You're bound spiritually. And this culture is designed to do that. That's why it's like the new iPhone 8 Plus, and we're coming out with the Galaxy Note 22, and it's like every year they got you on a hook for something else to keep you bound, to keep you always desiring something.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did talk about America and capitalism having such a great marketing sales technique. So it's like, how do you even try to fight that?
This is why the master teacher was saying, live of, for, and by each other. Throw out those TVs. Throw out your cell phone.
Coming together, that solves a lot of them issues.
It will, but that's hard as heck. It's hard as heck, man. I mean, we already know that from the communities. It was a disaster in one way and a phenomenal experience in another way. It's very difficult. The master said it's very difficult bringing people together from different walks of life, who was raised differently, culturally differently. That's very difficult task to do. Darn near impossible. But he was trying to do it for the sole purpose of raising us up spiritually, raising our vibrations so that we can pierce into the other realms, into the other dimensions. Because right now, our people are walking around spiritually, how can I say, mentally cut off. Spiritually and mentally cut off from the other dimensions. They don't think it exists.
No, most people say, that's make-believe, that's
don't,
fantasy, that's a movie. Yeah.
So those are the words of a materialist. Someone who's completely materialistic. They have no spiritual connection whatsoever.
That brings up something I wanted to ask about, because A term. Well, we started with the main goal of Paa Nabab Yaa NanaN is to restore our souls.
That's right.
When you hear souls talked about in this culture, you'll hear the phrase "selling your soul," and you normally equate that with just someone getting rich, making money. It sounds a little bit different, a little bit of a tweak. How would you address
Because what it means is when they say you sold your soul, you're becoming materialist. See, the Caucasian, they're materialists. That we talked about that in some of our other videos, like when you look at the Caucasian religion, like Christianity, right? They don't talk anything about raising yourself up spiritually.
No, they just talk about worshiping and how you
pray they have
go to
no
church.
Rituals for spiritual development. Like when you go to China and they have Tai Chi. And you have like the Tai Chi masters, right? And basically, and they're moving that chi. And it's, so that's your spirit energy. And they're tapping into it. And they're able to do things with it. We'll show that video with the Tai Chi master, where he got the Caucasian there. And the Caucasian like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, even the student, he's like, he couldn't tap into it. He don't feel it. Yeah.
So play that video, right? So we'll do that, so the public can look at that.
The strangest thing David took me to see in China was here in Beijing at Purple Bamboo Park.
If you can believe that there is an energy called qi flowing through the body, that it can be felt and manipulated, then perhaps you can see why some Chinese go one step further. They call this teacher Master Shi, and he tells his new students, come here every morning at dawn for 3 years, and then I'll know you're serious.
3 years? Right, and that's just the beginning?
Yes, but I'm warning you, Bill. What Master Shi claims he can do just doesn't look real.
What's going on here?
Master Shi will tell you he just used qi to throw his student. This is where a lot of the Chinese stories come of all the martial art masters. They could emit energy, and it wasn't just their physical force that beat their opponents, it was their qi.
But that goes against everything we know and understand in Western science. It defies the biophysical laws.
This is where Chinese medicine takes a wide turn off of what we understand and accept in the West.
我用的是和谐的玩法，我给它合上。我这里是一个我，那里是一个舌头，把分开。就是我的那个意念上那个地方去了。我的意念上那里去以后，我这个地方那个就是我的石子，这是我的曲子，我这也不使劲儿。要产生这种状态。
对，这个不用力。
不用力，没有用力，太极不用力的。
没有抓我，我明白。
啊，我没有用力，我不是这么抓不动。这个我也抓不动，我是用那个思想，我的意念一动，我的意念是一种能量，一种东西在
你做这个的时候，你有什么感觉？多说是热的感觉还是电的感觉？没有感觉。所以没有感觉是什么？
太阳拉着地球转的时候，你有什么感觉呢？这个地磁场，你有什么感觉呢？你没有感觉的，因为它有一种平衡感。你别看老师隔着你打我。
那就是你就他先退，然后你就棒他，实际上他就是退。
I don't. Look at that. His hand trembles when he does that. Look, yeah, there it is.
再做一次。
跟脚上没有关系的，他退不了啊。
Now, as an American student here studying this, what's happening?
What happens is, let's say I practice a lot of hard martial arts. I go in with my strength, and I push as hard as I can. And actually what happens is, his energy goes out of his body and into your body. So that you become sort of a marionette on strings. Where if he wants to all of a sudden jerk you with just energy, he doesn't have to move his hand. Suddenly every muscle in your body, every cell, expands or contracts.
But that defies all the biophysical laws as we in the West understand them. You don't emit energy. That's not the nature of things.
Well, I guess we have to advance our techniques of studying, because whether I want to believe it or not, I cannot affect him. I've studied a lot of hard martial arts. I can hurt people. I can do all sorts of things with my feet, my hands, and there's nothing I can do to him. And the harder I use muscles, the more muscle I use, boxing, taekwondo, the more violence is directed back at me. Not by him, but my own violence.
Try it one more time. Try to throw him. Millions of people are going to be watching, and I want to see you try to throw him. Really, this is for real. This is not a stunt.
No stunt, and I wouldn't be here to waste my time if it was a stunt. And we haven't done this in 2 years together, because the last time I did this with him, I got very hurt in my spine.
How long have you studied here?
I've been here now 4 years, studying with him every day. So if I can do what I'm doing now and affect him, upturn him, that means I've graduated to the next level, and he would teach me something new.
All right, let's see.
So for me, it's very important that I do this, that I actually affect him.
All right, let's see it. Come on, Andrew, give it the old heave-ho.
Come on, Andrew, it doesn't look real. So,
you didn't do it.
No, not yet.
4 more years?
4 more years.
Oh.
Then, I think, you know what the other video, there's another video they should show. There's another one with he was another master. Oriental.
Okay.
I forget what country he's from, right? But he was using his chi to,
Are you talking about with the brain surgery?
No. He was using his chi to put objects on fire.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with the paper. Yeah, that was something serious.
Put objects on fire, right? He was able to generate enough electrical energy coming out of his body, and he was able to put objects on fire.
I first met him in the early 80s in a Chinatown of urban Java. He didn't want his real name or address revealed, so we called him DJ for Dynamo Jack. He was only a healer, he said, but he did direct a powerful energy generated from his own body into his patients. For years we followed him around Java on his healing rounds, pleading to be allowed to film him, but he always refused, saying his powers resulted from a type of meditation with an ancient tradition of secrecy. It was only when my brother Lorne was suffering from a serious eye infection that he finally allowed us to film him in 1987.
Lorne was suffering from a bad eye infection at the time, a cameraman's cause for panic. Lawrence had heard of a man who might be able to help and dragged me to him despite my reservations.
Is it in? Good luck. You just relax and enjoy, Lord.
He uses acupuncture needles in the traditional points, but with a twist. Through them, he directs a form of electricity, as he calls it. But he doesn't draw the electricity from a wall socket. He claims to generate it within his own body. It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all. He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yin yang, positive and negative, you know. And my positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of...
It's meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. Like a yoga. But I study about 18 years.
18 years?
18 years. From my child before.
Can you project this energy through your hands only or through other things as well?
Only my hands.
Only your hands.
Like you can touch me, like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my burn. Just like this.
Our sound recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first. Later, he told us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper. Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he'd healed my eyes that made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know that we of the West have forgotten?
All that stuff is not real in this cold culture.
We have no concept. It's not about. That's not a Western thought. That's what that video was trying to explain. The Western thought don't think like that. So like when you go to India, yoga, the yogi masters, man, they open it up. They open up their third eye. They're interdimensional traveling. Like I like that one, the yogi master that was on the Avatar.
Oh.
With Aang.
Yeah.
And he was teaching Aang how to develop himself, the guru.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those gurus, they know some stuff. You know, but that's a part of the culture in India. They're spiritualists. It's the Caucasian that came with this materialism stuff.
And of
that's
course,
completely bound materialistic.
Our people live in Caucasian culture all over the planet.
We live in that culture, so we lost that. These are African principles. This is not, the Hindus got that from us. We taught them that. Get that book, what's that book? By George G. James.
Stolen?
No, not George, that's
George James.
That's not George James, the other guy, the other brother from Guyana, I think he's from Guyana. John Jackson.
Okay, John G.
John Jackson, John G. Jackson, that's him. He put a book out. And we'll post it. I forget the name of it, but we'll post it for the people. Where he talks about how that was these were, how can I say, cultural ideals that were African.
Okay.
These were cultural ideals that were that Africans influence India and the different parts of the planet. That's what he was putting on that book, and we'll post that particular book, something like that. And we'll show that picture like in Hotep, in the lotus position, and we put it side by side like with the Hindu. There, because Because people think, that's like come out of India.
Well, yeah, all our people have been trained.
Yeah,
when we
like
think spirituality
goes
through, yeah.
That's an African thing. That's an African thing. Martial art, that whole Wu-Tang. You know what I'm saying? These are African principles. So our people don't realize that we have a very powerful, potent, how can I say, spiritual doctrine that we taught on the continent, our ancestors. But you won't know if you don't study it. But again, this was what Paa Nabab Yaa NanaN brought to us as Nuwaupians. That was the goal.
Can we recap those three again?
So the first objective of a Nuwaupian is to link up the physical part of their nature with the spiritual part of their nature. To earn your crown. This was the whole point. To earn your crown, to get your 720 back. That's the goal. To get your 720 back. Play that clip again about the developing yourself spiritual from the master basically is explaining this. This is going back in the school of Islam, and it hasn't changed.
You better start thinking about what you marry, because what you marry will determine what the intellect of your children are. It is time for us to start breeding mentally. We have stopped breeding mentally. We started breeding physically. People say, he has curly hair or light eyes or light skin, so I'm going to have a baby by him because I have light-skinned, curly-haired kids. Those days are over. It is now time for you people to start breeding mentally, because the higher the mental capacity, the easier it is for extraterrestrials to communicate with you. People on a low mental capacity, it's very difficult to penetrate that block, that ignorance. But people who are more sensitive spiritually, because they were bred properly, it makes it easier when extraterrestrials are trying to communicate.
Okay, in Islam, is a woman, okay, you said that we were all angels fallen from grace. Okay, has an angel ever appeared in the form of a woman?
No, an angel has never been summoned to come to earth. And the reason why I say that, because this is not the only planet with life on it in the boundless universe. There are female angelic beings who do go to other galaxies, because there are other galaxies where female beings dominate to keep the universe balanced. Man is a gender, not a god. He'd like to dream himself into godhood. He's merely a gender, not a god. And in the eyes of the Most High, there is no gender when you look on the planet Earth. He sees you all as his children. No female angelic being has been incarnate on the planet Earth. However, there are female angelic beings that do go to other galaxies. And those of you who perfect themselves and make the transition from a mortal into a supernatural being or back into an angelic state and will get the opportunity to travel into other galaxies, you will be amazed. Because once you make the transition, remember, the first thing you inherit at the day of resurrection is life eternal. The same thing that the devil promised you in the beginning, that in the day you eat thereof your eyes shall be open and you shall be as God. He knew what he was talking about. He was deceiving us in one way because he was trying to make us violate the commandments of the Most High. But on the other hand, as an angel, he knew what he was talking about. You see? And the day will come that those people who recognize the violation of the commandments of the Almighty by partaking of that forbidden fruit, and reject the fruits of the devil, and reject the things of the devil, and take on the Messiahship. Because Messiahship, or Christ, is a nature that you all must succumb to. There's great masters or beings called Elohim in the beginning of Genesis. When they say in the beginning was the word, they use the word Elohim. Elohim is the Hebrew word which is Elo in a plural. These Elohim are what they refer to as the we, or the Lord of hosts, the angelic beings. They are overseeing. They come into your plane at different periods of time to interfere with what man is doing to try to coerce him. Those of you who accept the teachings into themselves will be transformed back into, again, angelic beings, and you will witness the heavens. You'll see angelic beings, and you'll travel other galaxies. Those of you that can make that height.
The goals are the same. The objective is the same. The other thing is Leviathan. Our people are inundated with Leviathan, and our goal as a Nuwaupian is to break the spell of Leviathan, to break the hold of the materialists, that you live for materials. basically, that binds you to this dimension. Because remember, what we taught is that this is the third dimension is the lowest vibrational rate. As you go up to the next realm, which is the plane of force, that's a high vibration. Then the next realm is the spiritual plane. That's another higher vibration. And then get into the mental plane, right? And so each level up, as you shift from one dimension to the next dimension, you have to raise the vibration. So when you take on more material on a particular dimension, it locks you in to that dimension. You get locked in. So you can't transcend one dimension to the next. Other than people do it every night when you go to sleep. You naturally do it. What happens? Because the physical body shuts down and it allows the spiritual part of you to raise up, to hover up.
I guess the challenge, most people not aware of those realms.
Your conscious awareness, what's the problem there? Your conscious and awareness is so focused on the material plane. You're thinking about, I gotta go to work tomorrow, I gotta what I have to wear tomorrow, or I can't wait to go to McDonald's, or I'm going to the Olive Garden. Your brain, all your thoughts is focused on the material realm, what you're trying to do on this dimension, so you don't think about the other dimensions. This is what they're trying to teach, like when you study the out-of-body experience, like the William Buhlman book, where he's trying to, his techniques in trying to teach people how to go out of the body is you have to shift your conscious awareness when you go to sleep. You have to shift your conscious awareness when you go to sleep. So you're not focused on this dimension, and you can shift your awareness into the next realm. Now for people who are trained who know how to do that, you can go out of body. Anybody can do it. Anyone can do it. This is what we've been teaching as a Nuwaupian, is to transcend this dimension and tap into the other dimension, because the master said that the throttle has been broadcasting, but they're broadcasting at a certain frequency, so you have to raise yourself up to their transmission. That's like, I was watching that movie. What's that movie? The movie with, it was Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. They was on a submarine, right? Gene Hackman was the captain on the submarine boat.
Okay.
Denzel Washington was second in command. Okay? So name of that movie. We gotta find it. So we can
What's the point of bringing that up?
Here's the point. Now, here's the deal. The point of Denzel's position was to question certain commands given by the captain. He was like a checks and balance for the captain.
Okay.
They was on a submarine. It was a nuclear submarine warship. Okay? And we was in like DEFCON 2, like tensions were running high.
Ready to go to war.
That was about to go to war against Russia, nuclear war, right? And so what happened? They get a transmission, I think, and it said, ready your weapons and go to war. Push the button, like Gene had, like push the button.
Okay.
Right? So before they was about to push the button, their submarine gets attacked by another submarine.
Okay.
So now, when they get attacked, then they get another transmission that comes in. Because they get these transmissions, that the communications from headquarters, like what to do, right?
Okay.
So now, but the last order was push the button.
Yeah.
But they couldn't. They're like Gene Hackman, he said, we got another communication, the captain. So he said, let's get the other communication. Then it comes to find out, they told him, the captain, the buoy that they have to send up, the signal, basically is damaged.
So they can't get a message.
So they can't get a message. They can't get communication. Communication is damaged, basically. So now here comes, he's like, we don't got time for that. Let's just push the button. And Denzel's like, whoa, you can't do that. You can't push the button because there's another communication. What if the other communication said don't attack?
Oh, so the point of this is saying we're getting all these communications and we're not receiving them?
You're not receiving the communications. The communication's there, but your transmission's been cut.
Okay, I got
your transmission's been cut.
Gotcha. So the signal's sending, but we're not getting.
But here's the point of the movie. The transmission's so important. It's a life and death scenario. So if you're like Gene Hackman and you only going on with the surface information that you have, right? And he's about to push the button and kill everything. And Denzel's like, nah, we need to connect. We need to connect. We don't make no decision until we connect and know, so that we have proper communication.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's key. Getting proper communication. And I think that's what's going on with us. That's exactly what's going on with us.
We don't have enough proper communication.
We're not getting proper communication, and this is why the master has taught you have to restore your soul so you can tap into that frequency, because the decisions that you're making, that's why Leviathan is winning, because you're making all these wacky decisions that's messing you up. But if you had a proper communication and you were connected to get interdimensional information, as we call it, what? Affirmation.
Yeah.
That becomes information.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you brought up that scenario, because the one that I guess would have popped in my brain is in the Matrix.
Okay.
With Neo. Before the agents, they were coming to his office in the beginning of the movie. And he gets that cell phone.
Yeah, from Morpheus.
Yeah, Morpheus is in the other dimension, i.e., he's in the mental realm,
right,
in Zion, and he's telling him the communication, how you get through. So he tells him, duck down, wait, go to the other cubicle, go to the go to the excavator or whatever. And he's like, how do you know all this? It's like, it's funny, they never answered that. He knows it because he's looking through the Matrix. He can see through for him. He's like, I'm going to tell you exactly what you do. Pay attention to exactly what I say. I'll get you out of your jam. He didn't listen. He got taken away.
That's and it's sad, but that's obviously what we're dealing with the master teacher.
We're not listening.
The problem that students are having is we're too materialistic. We're materialists. I mean, and I get it. Because we've been dipped, as the master said. You've been dipped in that Bible like sauce, and they put hot sauce on you. They put some barbecue sauce, and they swirled you in the NFL, and they dipped you in the NBA, and it's like, and they molded you.
Well, he said that's why the children are so important, because they're not conditioned the way the adults are to this culture.
They're pure until we corrupt them.
Yeah, I've seen babies. They could play with a piece of plastic. They don't have the values everybody else has.
Until we corrupt them, we adults corrupt the children, and we give them the values we have, and all the values we've been conditioned to have are materialistic, literally. And what's odd about that whole thing is that you live in a boundless universe. And you really think, guys, I really think this is the only planet with existence, that you're going to be stuck on this backwater planet. It's like on the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, and there's no other levels of existence. Really?
I guess that's why it's so important to teach that extraterrestrial life don't exist, no other planets are habitable.
But all the UFO phenomena that's out there, the government is now there admitted. It's not even a secret no more. That's how dumbed down the public is gotten.
But it makes me think, it's like the same way how this culture teaches you to ignore what everyone in the East is doing spiritually. They teach you to ignore interdimensional life, interplanetary life, all that.
All of it. We ignore it all. We ignore it all. And so we have no aspirations to peer into these other levels of reality.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. That's exactly what it is. And so the goal of a Nuwaupian is to transcend this dimension, to conquer the spell of Leviathan, to bind the physical part of you with the spiritual part of you. This is the objective. This is what the master teacher has been teaching, regardless of the school of thought. Had nothing to do with the school of thought, because the spiritual message was the same. So whether we were Ansars, raise yourself up. Teaching right knowledge, raise yourself up. Communicate with the Nagaru. Egyptian church of Karas, communicate with the Malachi cat. Right? It didn't matter. The message always was the same, regardless of the school of thought. Regardless of the school of thought. The message was all the same, because I think, what book was that we was reading? The master teacher was saying where no matter what you do physically, it's not going to solve these problems you're dealing with.
was in a letter.
That was in a book.
That was in a book too? Okay. I guess.
No matter what you do physically, what was it? It was in one of the Right Now scrolls, the little scrolls that came out. I don't know if it was.
I guess we'll find that and put that up as well.
Or Breaking the Spell, the little one though.
Okay.
We'll put it up because no matter what you do physically, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do physically to solve these problems. In essence, is what he's saying.
There's no physical
solutions
for a spiritual problem.
So even if you create a black nation, Black Panther, right? That's coming out. A black nation. Nah, that's not. What the problem is that we are interdimensional beings. Our potential is to be able to travel interdimensionally. That's the goal. You can have 1,000 nations, black nations on planet Earth. It has no purpose if you're not acknowledging that you're an interdimensional being and you can travel interdimensionally by learning to raise your vibrations at will, to learning to go in and out of the body at will, to transcend one realm and phase into the next. That's the goal. This is the goal of Nuwaupian. This is what our doctrine has been about. This is what we've been teaching from day one. So again, I repeat, it does not matter. It never mattered what school of thought we were in. The message is all the same. Spiritual development is a message that's been on this planet for eons. This is nothing new. The Caucasians are catching up, though. They're catching up. I think we need to play that clip from that doctor, the medical doctor, that realizes the difference between the mind and the brain.
With the near-death experience.
The fact that the near-death experience, that he's been doing all those experiments, not experiments, but I think he was
he has to classify death.
Yeah, his job as a medical doctor, he deals with death. So when people are dying, his job is to save people. And so many people that he has brought back to life, he said, they're talking about, I seen this, I saw this, I went to this realm, I went to that realm. And these stories are universal. They're all over the planet. He's gotten these stories, and they have a whole research and a whole study on people in this near-death experience. So we'll probably end with that clip, so to give people an idea that this stuff, especially in the Nuwaupians, this is real. It's not fake. It's not fake. The master teacher's been talking about this for eons. Now, society, 2018, is beginning to catch up to what the master been saying from day one.
Because we've now somehow gone beyond the threshold of death, we're able to study what happens to mind and consciousness when the brain is potentially shut down.
Dr. Sam Parnia has poured over thousands of stories of near-death experiences. He is trying to explain what happens between life and death. Is there a soul?
We can somehow answer this age-old question that people have had for millennia, which is it the brain cells that are producing your consciousness, or is it some other process that we don't understand yet?
He is studying cardiac arrest patients who claim to remember leaving their bodies and witnessing what was going on below. He places pictures high up in the corners of hospital rooms where they cannot be seen by anyone unless they physically leave their body and hover above the scene.
The images vary. What we can then do is simply put an image on this side that's only visible if you're looking from the ceiling down.
But if a brain-dead person is then revived and has memories of being somewhere after clinical death, how can you explain it?
That's why you can't explain away people's experiences as being a dream, because you can't dream or have a hallucination if you're flatlined on your brain. In order for you to hallucinate, you have to have a functioning brain.
So when I was hit and I was knocked unconscious, was my brain working or not working?
In your case, your brain was working still because you did not have a complete cessation of blood flow into the brain. You had a particular part that was injured.
So what caused me to see what I saw?
As you asked me, was I really looking down at myself, or was that just a dream? I don't know. And if anyone says they know, it's just they're speculating. We don't have evidence yet. What we know is that when someone dies, that process of dying and the cessation of heartbeat and circulation to the brain will trigger a part of the brain that mediates people having an out-of-body experience.